sitting very still and holding the body still. Sitting very still and watching what continues to move that is, you could say, out of your control, movement of the mind, emotions, memories, come and go without much of a way to stop them or control them or channel them. Just observe that. Very much like just sitting on a park bench watching pigeons. You don't have much say-so about pigeons, if any. They're very much like thoughts wandering around, looking for popcorn. Just observe the thoughts, come and go, come and go. The negative ones, the positive ones, the neutral ones. Just observe, observe, observe. Do this for a while. Just observe. Just observe. If you're in the Zendo, please gather in front of the altar up this way. If you're on Zoom, please turn toward your computer screen and turn your picture on if you can. And if you're in your jammies, then don't bother. So first of all, thank you all for coming and joining us, participating in this community, in this Dharma talk with this teacher and with this Sangha. And also thank you for all the other ways in which you support us, not only by practicing, but helping us as a community financially, just to keep the lights on, etc. Thank you. Please continue to help us if you can. We need help. This situation does not generate a service or a product, at least not one that we charge for. So that's just the way it's done. We don't have an explanation. This evening's Dharma talk is titled The Deep Fake. The deep fake. Something is unreal, but it's a fake. And it's deep. It's hard to see that. We can see the surface quality of that situation, but it's very difficult to see it in any depth because the tentacles or the roots of that self-centeredness, which is unreal, that ego, which is unreal, that um, narcissism, which is unreal, goes way down. It goes out of sight. Very necessary to look at that. The conventional way of talking about things like this sometimes is to say we unpack it because it's all crammed together in such a way that we just see the surface areas. You might think that you can see the self-centeredness or the narcissism in others, but it's very unlikely that you can see it in its depth until you see the narcissism, the self-centeredness, the belief in a separate self that is on guard, that is losing something, that is wants to gain something but can't, or actually gains something and has a result that's way ahead of everyone else. Constant shuffling around, comparing, judging, evaluating. This is what keeps that fake, the ego, the unreal self, the self that is generated in order to protect what? Possessions, ideas, things, property, things you think you own, and so on. Has to be seen deeply. And the only way that I know of, I'm not saying there aren't other ways, is to watch the movement of the mind and see how the movement of the mind, when something arises, that part of the mind shuts down on it, pushes it away, and an aspect of the mind fluffs it up or believes it or generates more ideas or stories around it to ramp it up higher so that it's really, really happening. It's true. Look what they said. Look what they did. Look what I'm doing. Look what I can't do. Look what they're stopping me from doing. See, what will people think if they see this and this and this? What will people think? My mother used to say that when I was very young. It was quite an existential crisis for me to hear my mother say it. What will people think, Bobby? It's pretty painful to have someone say that and not know exactly what they're talking about when you're 5 or 6. What will people think? So it's a deep cluster of lies that support an artificial self that we believe are true, or the other areas that we believe are untrue, like we think we're a failure. That's untrue, because there isn't anyone that can fail. There isn't anyone that can succeed. I'm not asking you to believe any of this. Don't believe it, any of this, but listen to this, listen to what's being said by this person, and consider it in your own mind stream. And at the same time that you're considering that, spend a lot of time not considering anything. In other words, meditate. I'm not saying you can't, as you're meditating, can't contemplate that a little bit, but the important function of sitting meditation, shikantaza, zazen, is to just receive whatever arises without comment, without congratulations, without obstruction, without disagreeing, without agreeing, and without closing off. That can take a long time. And one of the reasons it takes a long time is we keep looking for the result if we're doing that. We try to see if we're making any progress on the spiritual path. It's not to say that there isn't some progress, but it won't show up necessarily as an item that you can discover. I think I'm doing better. There's less of this, more of that. There's no standard for it. There's no guarantee that you may meditate for a few years and actually feel more and more relaxed, at ease, comfortable, and so on. Or you may feel like you're going more and more into a hell realm. Whatever occurs, and please ask questions around this if you have it. I'm delighted to go in that direction. I'm not talking about pleasure. I'm saying, when I say delighted, I'm saying this is a really good area to explore that I can possibly help you with, since I've been looking at it for a while. Needs to be seen. It's not something you think about. It's something you need to see, that area, that deep fake is not only deep because you can't see all of it, but you can see the leading edge of it. You can see the area where you're starting to push when you're doing sitting meditation. You can watch the area where you're starting to cling or fixate or just keep turning some thought over and over and over. You might not hook up your vocal cords, but you might be on the fence about that. You might be in an area where if you were in another situation, you would be chattering about it to someone. Not right, not wrong. It's something to see, not something to correct. It's not about correcting and being a different person, a person who doesn't believe, or a person who doesn't disbelieve, or a person who never ignores. It's not about that identity showing up there. What is it about? Awareness. And what is the awareness about? Seeing what is true and seeing what is false. You can do that yourself. There's no way you can convince anybody. You can lecture somebody, you can write books about it, which people have. There are literally hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of books running around in circles on this topic. And what I'm saying to you, every one of you have to see it yourself. It's not something you can figure out or think your way into. Though we do some of that because the ego, in order to stay on track at all, the self-centered mind needs to have something to chew on. So chew on the 4 reminders. Chew on how many noble truths are there? Chew on the 4 noble truths. Chew on that. Chew on the 3 marks of existence, on the 4 marks of existence. These are conceptual constructs in the teaching that you can look at as concepts and look deeply into those. Contemplate. If you're saying the 4 reminders, first contemplate the preciousness of being free and well-favored, difficult to gain, easy to lose. Now I must do something meaningful. What is meaningful? Find out the truth. Don't believe anybody. Certainly don't believe your mind stream, nor do you disbelieve it. Belief and disbelief have the same dynamic. You're doing something. You're backing away from something. You're going towards something. In both ways reifies what? The deep fake, which is what? A self. There is no self in this khandhas. Form, feeling, perception, concept, consciousness, all of that, razzmatazz, does not add up to me. And my world, my stuff, that is an illusion. It's unreal. I'm not saying it won't continue. Your hand won't continue to wave through the air. I'm not saying that you will stop having negative feelings coming and going. If you're meditating and looking for your negativity to end, you might want to talk to me a little bit about it, because it's not going to end. This is about transcending this world, not suddenly becoming totally delighted with everything. It's very, very hard. And it is very easy, even though you stepped on the path and you start to go straight, intend to see what this is, intend to save all beings, intend to be with all things, intend. Those are the vows, whether you take them officially with a preceptor, or whether you just read about it and decide to do that yourself. It's up to you. Don't do anything you don't have to do. If you're doing something you don't have to do, the very nature of that is a circle. You don't have to do that. What is it you're actually doing there? Biding your time. It's like walking around in circles in a train station, waiting for your train to come in. Except the train is your karma. And if you do that, eventually you'll come around and something will hook you and take you in another direction, right away from the Dharma, right away from this direct pointing at the nature of reality, this direct pointing at the nature of the mind, of consciousness only. You don't have to do that. You don't have to believe me. You don't have to ever listen to me again. Just keep giving the same talk over and over again. I probably have done hundreds and hundreds of these talks, and they're all talking about something very similar. Find out who you are. Don't get your identity from anything but consciousness itself. Mind only. Find out who that is. There's no promises. Things may back off depending on the karma that brought you into this realm, this human realm, or the 6 realms, or the 3 realms, or whichever teaching you supports your understanding. And it may get worse. It may get very, very soft and fluffy. It may get sharp and pointed and discouraging and hot and feel like you're burning up. I'm not threatening you particularly with anything. I'm just saying that you don't know what's going to happen. The downside of that is you don't know what's going to happen. The upside of that is about as close as the ego mind is going to get to wisdom. Only don't know. Only don't know. Don't know. Don't know. Not easy. It's painful. Whole world is doing this. Only most of them are going in circles, chasing right and wrong, success and failure, torture and pleasure, pain and pleasure, pain and pleasure, and blaming. It wasn't for them, and if it wasn't for them, who's going to take some responsibility for this? When I say take responsibility, I'm not talking about blame. I'm just saying whatever shows up, receive it. If you're sitting and facing a wall, practicing shikantaza sitting meditation, and you can just receive whatever shows in the mind stream without comment, without rejecting it, without accepting it, don't accept shit. If you do that, you just create more polarity. You become a person who's accepting everything. Notice my sarcasm there. I'm sure you've met a few of those. Maybe you're one of them. Are you? Find out. Find out. As it was said many years ago, a saying was, practice like your hair is on fire, because it is. This is coming to an end. Death comes without warning. Nothing lasts. Everything that shows up is going away. Every single thing, including your worst torture, your worst thought, your worst fear, it won't last. But it will persist if you fart around with it, push on it, pull it, validate it, justify it, explain it, put thought balloons over it so you can concentrate or think about it. Don't do it. Deep fake. It's unreal. It's fake. And it's deep. The way in which it's deep, if you get a flash of it or a glance or a glimpse of it, rather, you feel like you're making some progress. Probably not. It's worse than that, and it's better than that. It's better than that because you're liberated. The walls of the mind have completely turned into jello. They're unreal. They're there. There's something there, but it's an illusion. It's unreal. It's better than that. And it's worse because it can be totally devastating, painful to the ego mind. But you can do this. What else are you going to do with your life? Find out what this is. Get your truth, get your understanding of what is the truth, the ultimate truth from your consciousness. You can do this. There's no guarantee. No guarantee of success, no guarantee of failure, no guarantee of anything, no guarantee that you will necessarily be all cheerful and happy and attain some kind of transcendental bliss. Won't be hoodwinked by that stuff. It's like digging in a mine shaft. Deep. It's a deep fake. Sit down, hold still, and dig. I mean, actually dig. You're not doing anything. All you're doing is receiving. But it feels like digging because it feels like nothing's happening. You just continue to look. Look at the wall. Look at the floor. Look at the back of your hand occasionally. Look, find out what this is so that you find out that there is and there are no separate identities anywhere. This is why the world is on fire. This is why people are killing each other here and there. Not everybody. Sometimes it's not your turn yet to be born as a tyrant or to be born as a coward, to be born as a jellyfish. Find out that there's no safety. There's no safety in this or that, or finding this or finding that. Where is there safety? There's complete validity and complete safety in not separate. Nothing is threatened anywhere. If you can realize that in your mind, nothing can threaten you or scare you. You won't care how you feel. I've said this probably dozens of times. I'm not saying that if negativity will not come in your mind stream, that won't feel difficult, but your understanding of it is so powerful and so precise because of your practice that you can see that there is no person there feeling that the feeling is dependently arisen. It has its own energy, its own suitcase full of goods, and it's bringing it right into your life. And it looks so incredibly real, but it is not. It is not real. Find out. We'll get your truth from any. Don't believe in Buddhism. Don't believe in anything. Don't even believe in your own thoughts and your own conjecture, your own explanation to yourself. Watch things come and go. The truth is very direct, and you can see that. If you're looking at me, you're ready to hear this. If you're listening to me, you're ready to hear this. What is there, 50, 60 people maybe total? Not many. Doesn't need to be many. Not looking for numbers. Saying if you hear this, you hear what I'm saying, all you have to do is continue to look at what happens in the mind. You may need to have a highly stylized form to do that, because if you're moving around, the thoughts, emotions, the memories, and so on get shuffled around in such a way that it creates a stronger illusion of me and my stuff and my feelings, where I'm going, what I'm doing, where I've succeeded, where I haven't, how I could adjust this to get better, make more money, or get more famous, or get people to like me more. So that no matter what I do, people totally approve and congratulate me. Or maybe I can cover up the things that might embarrass me, so no one will know about that. Deep fake. If you see what it is, it won't go away. It doesn't have to. You just see that it's unreal, but it no longer runs your life, controls you, because there isn't anyone. You're liberated, and you may become a Dharma teacher. You may not. You may just retire and move to Arkansas, or move out of Arkansas. Take some questions if there are some. Please don't hold back. Yes, sir.
Sokuzan, what is the deep fake of discouragement?
It's just you're getting, when you're feeling discouraged, just continue to look at that. Don't look for the reason, even though there's an obvious reason. You failed at this, or this didn't work. Don't focus on that. Focus through the sitting practice of meditation. Look right at the discouragement. Trungpa Rinpoche said it this way: march directly into disappointment. I could say this, something similar. Just look when the discouragement comes up. Don't leave what you're feeling for some kind of a excuse or someone to blame, even though somebody did do something that possibly caused this. I'm saying if you want to do that, then go ahead. Go ahead, but not much point in meditating if you're going to believe your thoughts and ideas and emotions. More?
Sokuzan, how do I just receive that when there's a seduction and believing it?
Sit a lot and see it in its the total situation. And the total situation I would describe this way: see the way you can't receive it. See the way that you're being seduced. It's awareness. But the only way the awareness can see the seduction, or see that in its simple form, is to not do anything with that disappointment, but use that by receiving the disappointment. Then all of the other things, the seduction around it, show up as a, you could say, an aspect of that energy that's pulled in from different places. Difficult to find an image that would clarify that. And I would say returning to just the simplicity of the initial negativity, which is disappointment. Could be sometimes we have a feeling of depression and we don't know why. We just feel depressed. We feel depressed. That's depressing to feel that way and not know what caused it. But the ego mind will try to find some reason, some cause, and will settle for any kind of results. If you just watch television, this is what they're all yammering, trying to get you to use this. Fruits and vegetables, over and over and over. Tons of things that they can sell you. Do this, do that. You exercise more, drink more water, drink less water. Constant things happening. And what I'm saying, in a similar way, train your mind. No fee. Just train your mind. Sit down, hold still, watch the way in which you fail at stopping the disappointment, or fail at understanding something in a relative way, because that's the beginning of that's actually where your foot is right on the path. It's like walking in snow and you look back and there's no footprints there. Why? Because there's no one there. Never has been. But if you look back and you see footprints, then you're still a person laminated to this body-mind complex, believing this is a real being, having a real life that has a past and a future, which most of the world is hyping this all the time. Plenty of room for questions here. Please don't hesitate. Yes.
Sort of going, I want to go more into that image of the footprints. Is
Yes.
there, like, if we look back into a memory or something, what is it that is a footprint?
Feeling like there's something that happened, but you have no proof. You can't prove it. Can you prove what happened at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Eastern Standard Time? Remember, it was about a week ago. It was on a Wednesday. In fact, it was the previous month. Remember that? About quarter after 3 in the afternoon. I'm using totally acceptable relative statements, but that is so abstract. I'm not saying you couldn't write it down somewhere and go back and have it so it jog your memory and then have some kind of memory thing that would show up that would give you reference points for that. But that does not exist, and it's suspect as to whether it ever existed. Just like if you go ahead a week to the next Wednesday, can you remember what happened next Wednesday? Work on it. Not just trying to be silly. I'm just saying time is an illusion, as is space. And people, most of the people I know, most of the people are students or maybe family members, are busy believing their thoughts and torturing themselves or others with what they think, what they believe, what they're losing, what they're gaining, on and on and on. It's heartbreaking to watch. And I can't, as a Dharma teacher, I can't just say, stop it, stop doing that. But what I can say is, look at what you're doing. Look at that. Look at how, when something happens, you do something with it. Don't do anything. Just, it's a profound form of generosity. Give everything your attention. Use your sense fields to receive everything that's showing up: the sounds, the smells, the tastes, the feelings, the memories. Receive everything without doing anything with it other than receiving. More.
Shadow bowing, what is it to look back at a memory and see no footprint? Bowing.
Same as looking ahead and seeing no footprint. It's just a kind of a silly image, a way of saying this is unreal, but it is so convincing. Look right at what is convincing. Don't add on to it. Don't pull it apart. Don't do anything with it. Just look at it. Yes.
Shadow bowing, is the footprint the illusion of time? Bowing.
Time and space. More. Yes, Junchu.
Shu bowing. If we see the unreality of the self, would self-consciousness still arise?
It is a very complicated area, so it's unlikely that it might be some of it. You might still have the feeling of self-consciousness, but at the same time that arises the seeing that it has no stability to it. So therefore, you kind of have a sense of humor about your self-consciousness that you never had before. Before the self-consciousness is, what are they going to think of my prom dress? You have a prom dress?
I had one.
Can I borrow it? You see what I'm saying? I'm saying we get really kind of worried about certain things in our life, about what people think, but if we begin to see that that's unreal, and if we see that the deep fake, the belief in a self that is somehow offended, the deep fake of a self that is somehow embarrassed about what other people are thinking or saying, all this belief in this incredible elaborate illusion called living being. Unreal. There's just consciousness only. That has to be realized, and you can do that. If you're sitting here, you can do that, and nothing. If you realize that, nothing will happen, because that's relative truth. And you might ask, I might ask, anybody could ask. We could team up and ask. We could write a big book on it. Well, if there's no experience, then how will you know it happened? That something has happened, like you woke up or you realize that. Well, you won't, and you don't need to, because there isn't anyone to realize it. It's that astonishing, and it is that ordinary, and it is that completely raw magic. Don't believe anything I say. I'm not here to sell you snake oil. What am I here to sell you? I'm not going to sell you anything. I'm giving you something you already have just by pointing at it. You already are not separate from the one who lived 2,500 years ago. Nor are you the same thing. Go ahead.
Photo bowing, how can something be astonishing in it not being experienced?
That's why it's astonishing. I can say a little more, should I? Okay. Here it comes. You ready? How was that? Don't give me any thumbs up. So what I'm endeavoring to talk about, probably not all that skillfully, is that which arises continues to arise. We're still in the illusion, but there's no being. The illusion of a separate being who's watching all this is gone. And that which is arising could be even more painful without a self. There's no one to, because of itself, then you can blame, which tends to cover up a little bit. Or it's this, and they said this, and then they did that. And then then we can blame even more. We can back away from the intense suffering of no control, no experiencer, just a raw experience. It's just like a blowtorch. And it's called suffering. The Buddha pointed it out 2,500 years ago. Said life is suffering. The cause is wanting something else. And it's unreal. It's dependently arisen, yes.
When we're caught in self-consciousness, is there a way to have a sense of humor about it when it feels claustrophobic?
Probably not on the spot to just suddenly change, although there are some teachings that talk about it that way. Teach the 7 points of mind training. One of the slogans in there says, change your attitude and relax as it is. So if there's a lot of awareness practice, and if the particular causes and conditions are on the right side of the track, so to speak, and there's a certain slant of the sunlight that's coming through the trees that forms certain kind of diamond shaped patterns you get where I'm going with this. I hope that it's so complicated that if that is all lined up exactly, then, and you're a practitioner and you're training your awareness to see, then you may be the beneficiary of that incredible timing that it does not actually exist as time. It does not move. Nothing occurs. So you say, change your attitude. First of all, you're aware that you're having attitude, and you are aware that the attitude is aggressive or pushy or fighting with yourself or fighting with others or blaming somebody for how you're feeling. They did something, therefore you feel this way. Change your attitude and relax as it is. It's like saying, just if you can find a way in there, as I said, it is dependent on all the otherness, the light beams, the drops of water on the back of your Porsche. You have a Porsche, right? And on the trunk, in the morning when you look out and see those little bubbles of water, it's that. Why am I choking up? It's not a why. What is it? What does it mean for me, a full-grown old man up here, starting to cry about something? Is that a performance? Maybe if I cry, people will think I'm sad or happy. What is it? Find out what it is. You find out. You may cry, you may not. I have no pointer for that. All I can say is that slogan of a T-shirt written in the 12th century, change your attitude and relax at it as it is, can help you if there's a strong awareness practice happening so that you can actually see deeply into this deep fake. The way this is, it's unreal that if it's actually is fake, you can actually move it. Change your attitude. You can move it this way. Happiness, sadness, success, and failure. It's a deep fake. Just flip it over on its back. It's like a turtle. Remember that day when you drove down the road and you saw a turtle? And you stopped and you went back and helped it across the road. Remember that? Yeah. How many times have you done that? Why save a turtle? Why not? Why not save a turtle? That's why he's there. It's It's that deep fake. There's also a deep realization and that realization is what? Seeing that it's a fake. See it, you see it yourself. Yes.
Is it possible to, is it even possible to not observe?
You mean to ignore?
Not quite.
We'll get to the quite part.
I don't know, it feels like at this point, it's like when I look at my experience, there's observing and then there's like gaps. But it's like when I look back in retrospect, it's like there's still a quality of observing that was there, even though
Mhm. I'm following you. I'm tracking you. Exactly. What's your question?
are we always observing?
Yes.
Even what makes it feel like we're not?
Because the identity of the observer and not observer keeps vanishing. As long as there's an identity of an observer, then that shows up. But when there's observing, but there's no observer, this is realization. Find it. You can't ask that question unless you're hot on the heels of it. That doesn't mean you're going to realize it next week. It's not a compliment. It's just the truth. You follow me a little bit? Paraphrase what I said.
I don't know if I can paraphrase it, but what I understood was that it's like there's only one sheet that's always in front of us but there's no one that it's in front of. I don't know.
I like that. How many times does that have to happen before you see what it is? Let's try 20.
Nothing happens.
What?
Nothing happened?
You sure?
No.
Well, keep looking at it. Just keep looking. Well, that's interesting the way you describe that. It tells me that you're in the process of looking at what arises and what falls away without grasping, without rejecting, and without shutting down. And that's very lonely. Wouldn't you say so? Yes, it is. Further questions? Help Eric out here. I might go back to him if you don't. Go ahead.
To use that back. When I look for the observer, is it too much to then look for what's observing the observer?
No, you can do that. The observer of the observer. There's all kind. Anytime you have any kind of even a temporary identity of being someone who's observing something, you can always turn that around and question it. But then it becomes what's the common thing that's referred to here, the hall of mirrors. You just one mirror after another, after two mirrors facing each other. It's like, come on. Imagine how that one mirror feels. Not imagining that. Just a suggestion. More?
To use that back. It seems like that's what I experience as soon as I step back from the observer, it just kind of cascades and I give up. So I wonder if there's something that's direct and helpful about looking at that initial observer.
What's important about what you said is just don't maintain it. Maintaining it creates a labyrinth of constructs and intellect around it that gives us the feeling that we're onto something, or at least we can get it, or if we can just tighten it up a little bit, or we can think about it a certain way, we possibly can deconstruct it in a way that we can uncover reality with our intellect. Probably not. What's necessary to do is through the intention, the awareness is just return to that chaos, return to that labyrinth, or to that vortex, or that whatever word you want to use, or that mirror. More.
To use that back. I have a different question. When does not doing anything unless I have to become ignorance?
Different question. How about the last one? That was pretty good. Can we stay there? No, I don't want to. I want to know you. What's your next question?
When does not doing anything unless I have to become ignorance?
Never. Never ignorance. It can't. Reflect on what you just said. You just quoted me somewhat. Don't do anything unless you have to. There's no way that can become ignorance. Surprised? Well, you're a very intelligent man, I hear. show me how I'm wrong. Or show me how that doesn't work. Can you?
Geez, I'm going, I thought during our last interview, you said that by not doing anything unless I had to is ignorance.
I did.
We're like really close to it. So that's why I
Well,
was,
so the thing you'll run into, and everyone will run into is it's what it says in the title of one of Suzuki Roshi's books. It's something he said that they just decided that's pretty good. Very simple statement, kind of like don't do anything unless you have to, but it's like not always so. You can't find anything that's always the case. If you realize that, you no longer have a position in time and space, even though there's a body mind here and there's a heart beating, there's oxygen coming, carbon dioxide comes out of your mouth. I know that oxygen goes in, what comes out? Carbon monoxide? Or no, that's a 350cc Honda. Not always so. It's an astonishing understanding that will not relieve suffering necessarily, but it shows you that there's never anyone who ever suffered. There's just suffering. It's dependent origination. It shows up in this illusion of being a human being. You can realize this if you're interested. Yes, sir.
Shadow bowing. What's the difference between don't do anything unless you have to and don't do anything?
Pretty similar. If I say don't do anything, and suddenly we hear an explosion in the basement, that doesn't mean you're just going to sit here. You would have to do that. So similar situation. But saying unless you have to might be more insistent of kind of the hidden message there, unspoken message is just sit still. Don't do anything. Don't do anything unless you have to. Sit there. Get up. If you get hungry, go eat. There's the saying in Zen is before awakening, chop wood, carry water. After awakening, chop wood, carry water. Nothing happened. Did something happen? Find out. Find out what it is. When the belief in a separate self comes apart, dependent origination will still operate, or it may not. I don't know. I can't speak for everyone here. Depends on how you're wired into this whole thing we call karma, cause and effect, right and wrong, up and down. Mom and dad get together and you appear, and then they disappear. And then you may have children, you may not. And that just keeps tumbling around. And we show up over here and we show up over there. And no one can track down why someone who passed away here in 1958 suddenly shows up in another form in Indianapolis with no apparent connection between those two lifetimes yet. This person has memories of what happened in 1958 with another person altogether, has their memories. What is that? The other one that's a little bit more, maybe some of you have heard about it, and I'm not trying to draw a conclusion out of it, I'm just saying it's something that I heard. You probably heard something similar. Somebody who has a surgery or something and has a bone replacement, something like that. Sometimes they will get whatever the person, wherever that replacement, whatever the cadaver that came from, they'll have their issues or their problems. Have you heard of that type of thing happening? No. So do we believe that? I don't know. It's not about believing that. It's not about even necessarily going in that direction, but find it in your own mind. We don't really need to find out about somebody who was a apparent past life situation or any other proof. You don't really need the proof, but what you do need, if I were to say it this way, is to see who you are. There's no doubt, and you have to look an awful long time at who you aren't. Yes, sir.
Sure, I had one more question on don't do anything.
Sure.
As a practice, I just recognize in myself, I just tend to do as much as possible all the time. It seems like, and don't do anything unless you have to just like say no more often, like to actually like put some tension on that, to refuse some things.
Perhaps, but it's very situational. I'm not saying don't have a job, don't have projects, don't all the work you do in the monastery. Other people do other kinds of work, do participate in different ways. Everyone does this differently. So I'm not saying just to go the other way and don't do anything at all. But just watch the way that you or anyone else actually moves into action around something, not only physically to do something, but when you're on the cushion, don't do anything. When thoughts come up, sit symmetrical and watch the asymmetry of the mind. Go this way and that way and over here and develop this and think about this. The next thing you have kind of waking daydreams about all kinds of things, just filling up the space with stuff. Some of it is actually kind of worrisome, and other is maybe a little entertaining, sometimes a little gossipy about what she said, they said, he said. And so, and just observe as much as you can, just observe everything. And as much as you can, don't conclude anything. But the practice of doing that is to see how it's pretty impossible not to conclude or think or add or subtract or judge or admonish or all the other things that show up in the mind stream. But if you do that and don't correct anything and don't push anything away, don't accept anything, don't reject anything, don't ignore anything, eventually that starts to settle down and becomes more and more simple, more and more ordinary. So I would say, do what you're told. So I'm not saying don't do anything, don't take it that literal, but watch the activity of the mind and see how many things you're doing in your mind that you really wouldn't have to do, really wouldn't have to think about that over and over and over again. But also you can't necessarily stop it either. So that's also part of the awareness practice. Because we don't really, we all agree that we all think, but nobody knows what a thought is. There's no proof that you even have thoughts. Is there? Don't you have that practice where you, what's that called? Brain spotting. So does everyone who works with that, don't they all have different kinds of experiences? So have you found some people keep having the same experience as other people are having? That happen much?
There's some similar, but
Some are similar.
very.
Just like you have 15 birds, they're all doing one thing, flying. But some are red, some are blue, some make noise. Are there any silent birds? That's all you're going to give me is a shrug. Anybody know anything about birds' noises? Very disappointed. So I'm just saying that it's not, you can't always find out what's going to happen next by what just happened before, because instead of this cause that, there's too many other things that come in that apparent gap between this going through space and that happening there. Too many things that like just you're observing that, you're doing something with that. Nothing is separate. Yes.
What about you said one way to see the identity or the ego or the false self is to watch the grasping, rejecting.
Yes.
Are there any other identifying characteristics of ego or the deep fake?
So the three poisons: pushing, pulling, and shutting off or turning away. It's somewhere in that area of moving around and pushing or pulling or changing something, modifying something, commenting on something. It can become very subtle, so we don't recognize it as that we're meddling with things. But as soon as you start to meddle with anything, you stop receiving, and as soon as you stop receiving, you reinforce the primary illusion that there is a solid being, which is unreal. It's fake. It's a deep fake. The reason I call it a deep fake is because it takes so long to see that generates as a being doing this, thinking this, feeling that, being opposed to this or in agreement with that. So difficult to see that there's no one there. There is no being who's doing that. Sitting practice of meditation, as far as I know, I'm not saying there aren't other ways, but that's a way that you can continually to watch the production of that part of the mind that seems to be promoting this or diffusing that or ignoring something else, and see that action is circular and it's unreal and it's part of this whole illusion. So as far as I think you're asking, is there little items there that might be left out? I would say they would probably all partake of one of those three in some way. There's other versions like jealousy and covetousness and so on, yes.
Quantifying, so then we can see the deep fake if we by the actions that show up. Is there any is there a feeling associated or a
What seems to happen is that the so-called ego may still show up, but it seemed to be unreal. So it may still have an agenda. It may come when it's like the image I've used in the past, many years ago. I started using the one you don't have to get rid of your ego, but just stop being under its thumb. And that way, it's the one I've used in the past was like a clown on the roof. It's on the roof, so it's still here, but it's on the roof. It can't get to you. It has a red nose on, so it's invented. It's made up. It's a clown. It might be a scary clown. Quite often clowns are scary. So you don't have to get rid of it. You just see that it's unreal. Then depending on the karma that shows up in your lifetime or your lifetime or your lifetime, that clown or that aspect of consciousness that is unreal may occasionally reestablish itself and resurrect itself because of the causes and conditions that are rising in your kneecaps and your elbows as you go along 10 years after you realize your true nature. You're still alive and you're still in this realm we call the six realms. And so you may have to deal with that ego. It isn't a state that you realize. It isn't something you get to and suddenly you're sealed off and enlightenment is permanent. On the other hand, it's completely permanent if you realize you've always been enlightened. Then everything becomes a circus clown. More?
I want to ask basically the same question again.
Good.
The self-centeredness. Is there something that shows up, such as a feeling or a sense or an intuition that would indicate that the action or whatever is showing up is out of our self-centeredness?
Let me respond to it this way. Less happens. So when you realize that nothing is happening, that there isn't anyone that it's happening to, then the self-centeredness has been seen through. Because there isn't anyone. And if it does come back up the hallway, trying to get you to move this way or move that way, you see that it's unreal, you may listen. You would always be polite to the negativity. More?
What about on the path? How can we see our self-centeredness? Is it only our actions, our grasping, just the action of the three poisons that
Not just this kind of action, but the action in the mind, like my mind right now going to some dynamic in consciousness, like going to someone that has disrespected me, or someone that has something that belongs to me and they should give it back, or someone who's getting respect for something that I actually did and they're getting credit. A very subtle kind of thing. I don't even wait. They're congratulating her, and I'm the one who did that. I'm the one who took care of that. People are not, we all experience a little bit of that somewhere. We're not getting credit for something. That's an area. Or the other thing that happens is something, dependent origination is just showing up. Impersonal causes and conditions, karma. I can't remember the name of it. It's prarabdha karma. Sanchita karma is a karma that you create yourself by fighting with everything or agreeing with everything or ignoring everything. Prarabdha karma is that which just comes out of your birth. Your ear is shaped like this because of prarabdha karma. Your thought processes or your way of your abilities or lack of abilities comes out of that kind of thing. The length of your hands or your foot size or your tendency to catch pneumonia or something like that. That's all that kind of karma, the karma that just arises with causes and conditions. And so, you can see, once you see that that's just dependent, you don't take, you can have intense negative feelings go through the mind stream. But so I sometimes say you won't care how you feel. It doesn't mean you won't feel it. You might feel it more intensely. But at the same time, you realize there's no one who's feeling this. There's no personhood there. There's nothing to defend. You might even, in your mind stream, depending on how you're working with the path yourself, you might not care what happens. You might not even be concerned whether that, excuse me, that feeling stays in your mind or just fades away. Out of the respect that you have for confusion, which is not separate from Buddha nature. Not separate, it's not the same thing, but that's where you have to look at the confusion to see awakening, to understand what this is deeply. You have to look right at the deep fake to see the deep, deep truth, because they are not separate. Nor are they the same. Go ahead.
What about, can we see the deep fake if we, in some way, see our self-reference, see how we are the center of our interpretation or our view on
Yes.
everything? Is there something we can?
Just see, all you're doing is seeing that part of the seventh consciousness is self-reference, self-love, self-reference. So, well, I don't know what the other two are, but they're broken down into bits and pieces. One of them is self-reference, that everything is about you. So it's about seeing that, not correcting it, but just being aware that that's happening. And you may have to be aware that that's happening for quite a while. It may be quite embarrassing for you. You probably, if you're really seeing it clearly, because that is the very nature of selflessness, or realizing that is to experience the disappointment and the pain that the ego is not going to attain liberation, because it's self-referential. It's reinforcing the otherness. More?
Can you give some examples of that?
Yeah, you're a good example of that. Wouldn't you agree? Anybody else want to volunteer? I'm a good example of it. I do it. That's how I know about it, because it happens here. If I weren't full of confusion, I could not teach. I would just be kind of superior. I'd kind of overcome my confusion. This is spiritual materialism, which my teacher, Trungpa Rinpoche, pointed out in his book, Cutting Through Spiritual Materialism, and has been pointed out by many teachers way before we got here. But using spiritual techniques to accomplish and be a kind of a perfect, great, wonderful, kind, loving, adorable, generous person. There's no such thing as that. There is generosity, there is kindness, there is compassion, but it is without a personhood. If it's a personhood is there, you're identified with a body-mind complex, you're gonna what? I mean, you might still be, you might still just put your children before yourself, but you won't put this person down the street you don't even know their name before you. The only person that can do that is an enlightening being, a bodhisattva. They might not be called a bodhisattva, they might be called a reindeer. More?
What about, I'd like to ask again for examples that can be of me today, how I made it about myself.
So I think we can all probably come up with something there where you're going along and something is stressing you or giving you difficulty, or there's some jealousy, or there's some anger or irritation with someone, or someone's taking over your stuff, or getting more recognition than you are, those kinds of things. And it's not about getting rid of that. It's not about accepting that. Don't accept anything. The way I look at acceptance, if you start to try to accept something, deal with it by accepting it, you're covering it up. You're not actually looking at what it is. You have to actually look at what it is. And that can be done. It's just difficult. More? Can you think of an example? Anybody? I could take another question. Let me see if there's one. Do you have one on Zoom, on YouTube? Okay, I'll take one on YouTube, and then I'll do one more on Zoom. Especially no one on here has asked questions, so if there's one of you people out there in Zoom land, I'll get to you next. Go ahead.
Yoka bowing.
Milka.
A question from Spool String. How do you remember there is no self bowing?
Write it down. Put it on your, what is that thing, the white thing that sits in the corner, it's full of food? Pivotida. Put it on your pivotida. That's how 3-year-olds pronounce refrigerator. Put it somewhere where you can see it. I mean, seriously, you could actually do a reminder. There is no solid self in the skandhas, or just simply self is an illusion, or I am an illusion, or this, everything I see is unreal. As it says in the Sadhana Mahamudra, vividly unreal in emptiness, yet there's still form. In other words, it's vividly unreal in emptiness, but it's still here. It's solid. It's that kind of illusion. This kind, not incense smoke or something vague outside the window. No, it's solid, indestructible illusion that is unreal. You can't destroy an illusion. It would have to be something for it, but it's an illusion, so you can't destroy it. So does that mean it's eternal? What do you think? You don't know? Spool string. That's all that's about the only thing I can say is just write it down somewhere. Meditate a lot, sit a lot. A couple hours a day. Especially over there where you're at, isn't it in the UK? Yeah. And that far away, you're so close to what is it? What is it, 0 degrees Greenwich? Isn't that where that's at? Yeah, meditate right on that line. One bun on one side, and the other bun. It's just a formula. Tantric. Is there anyone on here? Come on, Susan or Jen or Peter or Jisheen, Jacques, Yuhang. Look, they're all silent. Is my microphone turned on? No takers? Okay. Very good. So we can close. Thank you so much.
May the merit of this penetrate into all places, so that we and every sentient being together can realize the Buddha's way. Jiho san chi shifu, shizon bu sa moko sa, moko ja. The 10 directions, the 3 times, all Buddhas, all venerable ones, Bodhisattvas, Mahasattvas, the great Prajna, Paramita,